Welcome to the Empowered Catholic Podcast with Karen and Curtis Herbert, where we combine the best of theology, science, and coaching to inspire your empowerment. It's our mission to help you release the inner obstacles that are holding you back from embracing true Christian freedom, so the power of the Holy Spirit can manifest in you. So if you believe that God has more for you, if you want to believe that God has more for you, listen on, my friend. Hello, and welcome to the Empowered Catholic Podcast. You are here with Karen and Curtis Herbert.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here with you. And it was great, Karen, to be away from you for a short time.
I know. You had a very nice travel time.
Yeah, I was down in South Texas, and as I was talking about what beach to kite surf from with one of the locals, he said, "Oh, yeah, I listened to your podcast. It's really great."
What?
Yeah.
Some random person.
Yeah, kite surfing dude, man.
That is so fun. I'm having more of those experiences lately where I'm meeting people and they mention that they listen to the podcast. I'm just totally startled.
Yeah. Yeah,
amazed,
it was very fun.
I enjoy it. Yay. Excellent. Well, today's podcast, we are continuing a theme that we started last week. If you recall, we were talking about metaprograms, those higher level patterns that people are running in their brain all the time, and how really they're connected to learning to have empowered relationships and empowered communication.
Karen, after we discussed metaprograms, I was sitting with it and simply observing that there really is a lot to that
Right.
I've got these high-level ways of doing things that are very important to me, and they often kind of predetermine how I'm going to approach something.
Yeah. And they're mostly unconscious because, hey, once you've got the pattern, you're going to put it in the unconscious and not spend all your energy trying to figure out how to approach every single instance of a similar situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the one that I wanted to talk about today, actually, we're going to talk about a couple more metaprograms. And there was one that I found really intriguing because it shows up on the Myers-Briggs assessment as one of the 4 metaprograms that she assesses. And the first few times I took that assessment, I just never quite got what was going on with this pattern. And so lately I've just come to understand it a lot better. And that's the difference between being a perceiver and being a judger.
Oh, sure.
And a judger.
Are you judger? You judgy judger.
It's not really the best word, I know, but and remember again, these patterns there are on continuums mostly. So we might tend towards one or the other end of the continuum, and sometimes people are on an extreme end of the continuum, and that becomes obvious. And so the continuum of perceiving and judging, it's actually a pattern about how it is that you're adapting to the world around you. What kind of level of control or management are you seeking to exert on the reality that you find around you? And I like to think of it like that, really. It's how you're adapting and how much control you're attempting to have.
Okay, you're going to have to break that down a bit, I think.
Okay, I love it. So when you're on the perceiving end of the spectrum, you're just more likely to go through life and take it on its own terms, right? I want to witness it. I want to observe it. I want to experience it. I'm more likely to try to join with or integrate what's going on and perceive it. So I'm going to take a lot of things as they come and adapt to it. It's a pretty gentle, really, approach to life. There's a lot of acceptance. These are, people who tend to be a lot more philosophical about, well, this is life and we're going to just be flexible and make this change and roll with it. And they're spontaneous and much more likely to allow themselves to experience what's happening.
To experience what happens, it sounds like there's a big emphasis on participation.
Yes.
As a perceiver.
Yeah. And freedom and having options to have the experiences, letting life play out.
I kind of think of perceivers as being passive. And maybe it's just because of the word perceiver. What do you think?
Well, there's an element of passivity if you think of it in terms of how much control are you wanting to exert. So because a judger, for example, is instead of adapting to what it finds outside of itself, it's more likely to want to have life adapt to it. And so the judger is going to think more about, how can I utilize these things around me? How can I optimize them and make the most of them and structure them and order them and fit them into the plans so that I can achieve something specific? And so they're much more likely to want to exert control on the things around them versus receive them. And I think that's where that passivity that you're mentioning can come into play.
Impose order? Does that fit?
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. A judger is more likely to make plans, to make quick decisions, to think about what is here that I can improve and how could I improve it? And how can I manage this better? And what do I like or dislike? And what strategies will serve the overall process? It's a person who really enjoys using their calendar app and their list making app.
Oh, yay.
They have a vision for that. I think this language around adapting to life, experience it versus taking control and ordering it has really helped me to understand this metaprogram.
I'm trying to figure out which one I want to be based on your description.
Well, it's very interesting. I think different ends of the continuum could be more optimal in different situations, right? So, I mean, what do you want to be when you go on vacation? You want to be enjoying your experience, feeling refreshment, not going by a timetable.
Yeah, I want to be part of a pack of perceivers served by a judger that we could outvote.
That makes me wonder if you did, I'm sure somebody's done this, but what are the jobs that judgers versus perceivers tend to enjoy and excel at?
Oh, sure. Maybe they're working genius, for instance.
Exactly.
I can't help but think of one of your cousins that goes on vacation and plans all the visits and gets all the tickets.
Yes.
She's a real asset.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the person you want to go on vacation with, for sure.
No, she would make me crazy, though. That's why I need other perceivers to outvote her.
Yeah.
Tell her, no.
Yes. But if you didn't have her, you'd be showing up at the museum like, oh, I guess it's closed today.
I guess it's closed,
Can't go
yeah.
here. Oh, I should have got my tickets 6 months ago. I said, no, I just
That's
never
right. That's right.
got around to that. So, and that's actually a good example because perceivers and judgers have very different experiences of time. And it really comes back to, is time something for me to order and manage and utilize? Do I want to strategize my time and use it, or is it something to be experienced? And really, the time just goes along with life in the way that it's to be experienced.
That's a very tangible kind of differentiator.
Right. Yeah. So I was at a seminar once, and one of the things you were supposed to do was fill out this form or something before the seminar. So you're sitting there in the seminar and you're coming up to the first break. And the guy who was leading the seminar said, okay, now all of you perceivers out there, you remember that form I sent you 3 months ago, and then I sent it to you 2 months ago, and then I sent it to you 1 month ago? That's the form you need to fill out over break because it's due by the time you come back into the room. And he said, and you know who you are. Of course, those people were nodding. Yes, I know who I am. That's your perceiver, right? And he said, those of you who are judgers who sent it in the first day I emailed it to you, you're good. You can just have a break. You don't have to do anything. And so that's another, I guess, concrete example of how a judger is going to interact with life versus a perceiver. And we can get all bent out of shape about that, or we can appreciate that certain people work in certain ways. And this, I think, is something, Kirsch, you and I have learned over our time as coaches and teaching communication, is that, you know, we can learn about this stuff and put it to the side and not actually have it change or affect how we're relating and how we're communicating with one another.
Well, if you want to be an inspiring leader,
Yeah.
a leader that connects with people and creates a vision and motivates them to be part of the team. And I would contrast that with perhaps just a kind of a manager that relies on authority and incentives and punishments. But if you want to be an inspiring leader, then figuring out how people work
Right.
internally, how they communicate, maybe what their priorities are, then you can use that to figure out, well, if this person doesn't really value my deadlines, but they need to, what is it that is important to them that I can use to help persuade them to, you know, get going on something that's a priority for the greater team?
Wow, that really makes me think of a principle that we teach in some of our trainings. And it's the principle that the most flexible communicator is the one who's going to have the most influence. And I think most of us just assume that other people should adapt to the way that we do things and the way that we engage with life. Well, you should be doing it the way that I want you to do it, or the way that I do it. And in reality, it's the people who learn how to be flexible with all different meta programs and meta patterns who get the most influence in a situation.
Well, let's stick with the deadline example. It is very difficult for me to understand somebody that doesn't understand what a deadline is. And that's for many reasons that I can't understand that. Yet, with some people like that, you might be able to find something they do prioritize, like harmony with the team, or something other than, you know, using your authority to threaten them.
I think that's a good point, that some types of communication are not going to be effective in getting the result that you want. And the answer isn't to double down on the way you're communicating. It's to try another way of communicating.
Well, that's right. That's really, I think, what I was trying to say. That was really good. The answer is not to simply double down like the tourist in a foreign country that tries to speak loudly and more slowly in their same language with the idea that somehow that's going to make it more clear to this other person.
Sure. Or even, you know, you send the email and you don't get the response you want. Well, do you just send another email? Do you just keep sending emails? Or do you consider what is a different kind of communication that's going to get the response that I'm looking for?
And in terms of flexible communication, you know, bearing in mind that somebody might be running a different meta program, and bearing in mind that there's very many of them.
Yes.
And you don't even know what meta program it maybe is controlling. As you're, say, talking with your kids, for instance, sometimes it's hard to understand why they didn't get the message, and you just attribute it to their orneriness or silliness or obstinacy, and it makes you want to simply double down on your approach. Yet, if you could try some different ways of communicating with them, you might start to find ones that are better, that are more useful for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a good meta program along those lines.
Oh, okay.
Since you brought up the kids.
Yeah. Okay. What's that?
So one of the ways that we process information is we filter it and order it using our senses, right? Our visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, etc. And so we pull it in our senses and we represent it to ourselves, and we use our senses internally and externally. And it just so happens that each of us has a preference for one type of sensory representation. We might be more of a visual processor or an auditory processor or a kinesthetic processor. And if we are, then that's actually a preferred way of receiving information from someone else. And actually, if you're using a different sensory modality to communicate than someone's preferred sensory modality, it can create an obstacle. So that person actually can't hear you because you're operating in a different modality.
Okay, this is a good example. I think anybody that does teaching has been exposed to this idea that some kids are visual learners.
Yeah.
Some are auditory learners. And when you're working with somebody, you can't always, it's hard to systematically work through all the options, but you can observe them and try to see what's lighting them up.
Oh, yeah.
You use your own, we call it visual acuity, to see when they're responding. And you know, there's also things like examples can be really critical for some people. Also, some people like the details first and then the big picture.
Yeah.
Other people, they can't even intake the information until they get the big picture. And then they can start to hang the details off of that.
Right, right. And if you start to observe and notice how people prefer it, it really helps your communication and getting your idea across.
And it's not just your kids, right? It's everybody else in your family.
Right, right.
And it's everybody you work with and everybody you meet. And the idea of flexibly communicating kind of captures all these thoughts.
Well, it really does. And it takes some intention and some effort because I have to consciously learn other modes of operating versus what's easy to me, which is what's running unconsciously for me. And so I have to decide to step out and that it's worth it for me to be learning how to be flexible.
Okay, so talk about the ham sandwich.
The ham sandwich. Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I really liked it when you explained it that way. So do you remember how you did that?
I think I did. I just said, well, you know, would you eat a ham and cheese sandwich? Is it something you would eat if I offered it to you?
And some people would say yes, and some would say, well, I want mustard. And another one would say, no, I need mustard and mayo and lettuce.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to offer you a ham and cheese sandwich. And it matters to you if it has lettuce and tomato on it, or maybe you don't like lettuce and tomato, or maybe you want the mayonnaise or the mustard, or maybe you want them both. And there's something that makes that ham sandwich a lot more appealing to you if it has that with it. So in terms of communication, it is a good example because I'm going to offer you information and I want to offer it to you the way you like it. I'm not going to pull it over here and smother hot sauce and ketchup on it and then try to offer it to you. And you're like, ugh. Now you, Curtis, you probably would like that. I would not like that. And I probably wouldn't eat it. So if I know what you like, then all I'm doing here is I'm giving it to you the way you like it.
That's right. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of somebody offering you a ham sandwich that you really don't want, you don't appreciate it. And you think about how much you don't want the ham sandwich. And all of a sudden, things aren't getting communicated the way that the purveyor of the alleged sandwich would have wished.
Right. Right. And part of what I like about this example is you actually would eat the ham sandwich if it was presented to you in a certain way. And there are other ways of presenting where you wouldn't eat it. And this is what we mean when we're talking about flexibly communicating.
Yeah. And again, a lot of this is simply observing what's happening while you're communicating. Are they getting confused on the emails? Are they, I knew a lady who would never answer a voicemail on her telephone. Well, why won't you answer your voicemail? She said, well, I never answer it. They know that. And I'm like, I didn't say this, but there's members of the public calling her and leaving her messages. And what she would do is she'd just wait for it to fill up so it wouldn't take any more messages.
And then leave it like that.
That was her strategy.
Interesting.
Now I'll say she was a very busy woman. And
Right.
I know other people that don't answer all their emails for the same reason they can't.
Yeah.
And so that's fair. But it's pretty funny. If you didn't know that about her, you'd be pretty surprised when she never got back to you after you left her 6 dire messages on her voicemail.
Right. Right. That's actually a pretty good example in terms of as you get to know different people, you kind of just get to know how they need to be communicated with. Like there's people I say, oh, I sent this email, but I can't email them. I have to text them.
Oh, sure.
Other person, it's like, well, if I really want to talk to them, I actually have to make the phone call. And that's maybe a kind of a very general example of how that's going on all the time in our
Right.
programs.
So my parents would complain about people that don't answer telephone messages. I complain about people that don't answer emails. And somebody younger than me probably complains when they don't answer texts.
Yeah. Right away. Like, why aren't you looking at your phone all the time? Answering
Exactly.
my text.
Yeah, right away. Yeah, I hate that. You get a text, it's like time sensitive. I'm locked out of my car. Well, you could use the voice function on your mobile device to contact me with something urgent.
It's true. It's true. If you find that you're struggling, to communicate with somebody, it's worth considering, well, what are their metaprograms and how could you be more flexible to connect the way you want to connect? Curtis, you and I teach a lot of these concepts at some of our trainings. We have a particularly exciting leadership weekend coming up in a couple of weeks. It's April 25 through 27.
This has been very well received.
It has. 2025 is the year, in case you're listening to this at a different point in time. And it's for any leadership. Are you a parent? Are you a part of a team? Are you in a work leadership position, a church leadership? Do you lead any kind of a group? This is a kind of weekend that will just help you to break through and get to a whole new level of how you're relating to those around you and how you're relating to yourself.
What's the area of life where you have an important goal and, well, you're not really making the progress that you want for whatever reason? Then bring that to the weekend. And if you're wondering, oh, well, can I bring this thing to the weekend? Just go to our website, empoweredcatholics.com, and book a consult or send us a text message or something like that, and we'll get back to you and we can discuss it.
Excellent. Have a wonderful week, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for being here with us this week. Visit our website at empoweredcatholics.com to learn more about us. And remember, as Pope Francis says, God comes to break open everything that keeps you closed in.